The Sanskrit meaning of the name Arunachala loosely translates as the hill of intense fire. The hill that we see here in the popular pilgrimage town of Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu is believed to be the physical manifestation of the Hindu god Shiva. Every year, lakhs of people throng this town to make their way to the top, where a giant lamp is lit during the festival of Kartigai Deepam. Masilamani is an old-time resident of the region. His first interaction with the hills, he tells us, was born out of the need to feed his family.
கொஞ்சம் உயரமாக கூட எங்கள் அம்மாலாம் காட்டுக்கு வெறு வெட்டு போவாங்க, வெறுக்கு போவாங்க. போனாக்கா எனக்கு வெறு அம்மா அப்பா நம்மள கூட போய் நம்மளே எடுத்து வந்து போகலாம் சம்பாதிக்கலான்னு போவோம்.
The greenery that we see now, however, is a recent phenomenon. 20 years ago, Arunachala was a dry, barren hill and a veritable hotspot for forest fires.
மேடம் மழை வந்து உச்சிட்டு குறிமாக தான் இருக்கும். ஆனால் அங்கங்கே ஒரு ஆலாமரம் மாதிரி அங்கங்கே எட்டு ஒன்று ஒரு மரம் இருக்கும்.
However, if there was one species that had always dominated the hills, it was the manjampul or wild lemongrass. In the 1970s, this species was used as roofing material for locals. After harvest, its stubble was burnt to enable fresh growth, destroying other species in the process. By the 80s, locals had moved on to brick houses, but the highly flammable lemongrass had already made the Arunachalas its home. Even a small spark could now leave the forest burning for hours.
The forest restoration project that is under.
We spoke to Navendu Page from the Thakre Wildlife Foundation, who had conducted a study to understand this unique ecosystem.
The frequent fires that occur here, which are largely human induced, they occur at frequencies that are far higher than natural levels of fire. And because of that, what it has resulted in is proliferation of some fire tolerant species, such as the lemongrass. Now, the funny thing about lemongrass is not only does it well under fire conditions, but it is also that it's a species that burns well because of the high oil content in its leaves. And that makes restoring such habitats very, very difficult.
Conservationist Arun Venkataramanan used to frequent these hills as a child. Today, he's an integral part of its revival.
My very distinct memory is this, okay? During my childhood, we could never go on the hill during the daytime. It will be hot and scorching like. So 1988-89, this whole idea that this hill could be closed in a forest was put into action. There was a lady called Ipsita Arunagiri. She is actually Australian, and she and Arunachala Reforestation Society, that's an organization which was started with the support of the Ramanashram. And they began to plant. There was no topsoil. It was scorched earth, and nothing would survive because there was so much grazing going on in the hills.
Sanction office, go to the draft. Let's open the draft, yeah.
Back in Chennai, we caught up with Supriya Sahu, who has been at the helm of affairs at the Department of Environment, Climate Change and Forests for the government of Tamil Nadu. She shares how a warming planet has already set off an alarming trend, not just in Arunachala, but across the state's districts.
They have taken their stuff also. Let me speak with the evidence and data. In 2022, we had 80 large fires. In 2023, which is last year, we had about 156 large fires. 2024, we have already had about 217 large fires. So what we are seeing is, it is of course because of various other reasons, but I think the major factor is that the number of dry days, you know, the continuous dry days, we have seen increasing year on year. So that is the reason when you see when a fire starts, usually what will happen, we'll get some summer rains, or you will have some moisture in the air. We are not seeing that. So I feel that the impact of climate change is very, very evident.
Or future planting.
By 2006, Arun had realized it would take more than persistent plantation efforts to revive this hill.
7,000 kittens.
Partnering with environmentalist Govinda, they went on to create a charitable trust, Forest Way, to start with tackling the problem at its source.
When Govinda came in and we came in, the thing that changed is like that we realized if we are going to bring forest back here, we need to combat fire.
For the last 2 decades, Masalamani has been actively involved with Forest Way.
ஏன்னா நாங்கள் ஃபுல்லாக வைப்போம், ஒரு 10,000 12,000 5,000 கூட வைப்போம், 20,000 கூட வைப்போம். அது வளர்ந்து வரோம், உடனே பயிரானோடனே பூரா குலாஸ் ஆகிடும். என்னன்னா இவ்வளோ கஷ்டப்பட்டு வச்சது மாரி என்ன அதுக்கு என்ன ஐடியா பண்ணோன்னா பயிர்னு ஒன்று ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணோம். ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணி எல்லாத்தையும் பாதுகாப்பு பண்ணிப்போம். அப்போ அந்த செடியெலாம் கொஞ்சமாக எல்லா செடியும் பாதுகாப்பு பண்ணிட்டு மரம் எல்லாமே வளர்ந்துருக்குது. நம்ம மரமும் இயற்கையாகிற மரமும் ரெண்டும் சேர்ந்து பசுமையாக இருக்குது.
Every year, Masalamani and his team of fire watchers manually create clearings that cut across the length and breadth of the hill. These distinctly carved out fire lines act as a line of defense from any fires.
அது அடியில் இந்த தகுப்பார் கிளீனமாக சுத்தமாக கடப்பால் போட்டு மஞ்சள் பிடிங்க அப்பால் பறிச்சிடும் ரெண்டு பக்கமும். ஃபஸ்ட்டு 35 அடி ஃபஸ்ட் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணும்போது 30 அடி இருந்தாலும் அப்பால் பறித்து தூக்கி போட்டுருவோம். முள் மரம் அதெல்லாம் கீழே கழிச்சிடும், முள்ளை கழிச்சிடும். மரத்தை மாட்டம் ரயிலில் விட்டுருவோம். மரம் எல்லா மரமும் ரயிலில் க்ளீனாக இழுத்து விட்டோம், கீழே மாட்டம் கழிச்சிடும். மரம் மாட்டம் மரம் மேலே போகும். அந்த புல்லு பூரா அப்பால் பறிச்சிடும் ரெண்டு பக்கமும். பயிர் ஆகி வந்தோடனே இந்த பக்கம் வராது, இதோடு நிற்கும்.
VDK is part of Masalamani's team. As a seasoned fire watcher, a big part of his role is to extinguish a fire at its earliest possible stages.
வருஷத்துக்கு வாட்டி வருஷத்தில் எப்படி பார்த்தாலும் 3 வாட்டி 4 வாட்டி 5 வாட்டி போய் அமைப்போம். அது வந்து பில்லு பச்சை மழை பெஞ்சிச்சுன்னா பச்சை துளுத்து வந்துச்சுனாக்கா அப்போ வந்து எரியாது. இதுமாரி காய்ச்சலாக இருக்கும்போது சும்மா நெருப்பாட்டால் கூட பிடிச்சிச்சுன்னா மாட்டுன்னு எரிஞ்சுன்னு போவோம். அது நம்மக்கிட்ட வந்து சொல்லுவாங்க, நம்மளுக்கு மேஸ்திரிகிட்ட சொல்லுவாங்க. மேஸ்திரி வந்து நம்மளுக்கு எல்லாருக்கும் தகவல் சொன்னால் நாங்கள் போய் அமைப்போம், தலையை உடச்சி அமைப்போம்.
What makes this region even more vulnerable, in fact, is the floating population of tourists. Anything from lighting lamps to flicking cigarettes has the potential to set back restoration efforts by years.
அப்போ தீபம் போட்டாங்களே இல்லை, எல்லாம் எடுத்து வலிச்சு அந்த திருநாள் பக்கம் ஃபுல்லாக ஏற்றுவாங்க. மலையில் எங்கே வேணாலும் ஏற்றுவாங்க. நம்ம அங்கங்கே ஆள் இருப்போம், உடனே அதை போய் அனுப்பிச்சிடுவாங்க. ஆமாம், அனுப்பிச்சிடுவாங்க. இப்போ எல்லாம் ரைனை வச்சு தான் சுற்றி போய் நம்ம கொஞ்சம் லேட்டாக போனால் கூட போட்டால் கூட ரைனோட கட்டாகி நிற்கும்.
The unique thing about this restoration project is that this is perhaps the only restoration project in the country that focuses on this unique mosaic of vegetation, which is a mix of dry thorn forest, the grassland savanna, and some unique elements of the tropical dry evergreen forest. And this interesting mosaic of vegetation is only restricted to the eastern Ghats and the Coromandel coast of the peninsular India.
District Forest Officer Yogesh Kumar acknowledges how it has taken a concerted effort among stakeholders to mitigate a challenge of its scale.
देखिए, जो फॉरेस्ट फायर है किसी भी तरह से हर किसी के लिए शोरनाश में नुकसान लायक ही होता है. It's mainly damage not only the animal and wildlife but also the loss of the ecosystem and biodiversity, and even also impact the livelihood of the local people.
The Forest Department, on its part, has been conducting regular awareness campaigns while also equipping ground teams with data and technology.
फॉरेस्ट फायर को फाइट करने के लिए आज का हम लोग मॉडर्नाइज टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज़ कर रहे हैं, जैसे कि अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम। तो फॉरेस्ट सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया का एक फायर अलर्ट वेबसाइट है, सो वी आर गेटिंग द रियल इन टाइम इंफॉर्मेशन। तो उसके बिहाफ पर आवर फॉरेस्ट टीम विद द हेल्प ऑफ द लोकल पीपल दे आर गोइंग टू द स्पॉट, और वहाँ पर फिर फॉरेस्ट फायर को डाउज करने का, बुझाने का काम करते हैं।
Both the Forest Department and Forestway have parallelly been focusing on planting indigenous trees on this forested hill. Arun tells us how they have been trying to plant around 20,000 saplings each year.
Luckily, there is a very, very beautiful mechanism with deep forest, with the forest that we have. Because when the forests are dense, they always have enough moisture. So if you look at the data of the big forest fires, it will never spread if the forest is dense and it is healthy.
For Arun, who has been visiting Arunachala since childhood, the transformation of this forest before his very eyes has been indelible.
Some of these things have been dramatic. One is the coming of deer. When the forest came back, the deer came back, and you're like, and the porcupines and the wild boar and bird species. It's dramatic. In terms of forest coming alive, it's a living thing, right? Earlier, if there was a rain, there will be a flash flood, Now it's not like that. Now, like yesterday's rain, there is no water ran off the hill. All of it is being absorbed. The root, the soil has got the porosity. The trees have created that sponge-like thing, So much, all this rain gets absorbed, and maybe 1 month, 2 months after the rain, when the soil has become saturated, water starts flowing, and these streams flow for months after the last rain. So there's so much water being generated from this one hill that it's recharging groundwater, it's recharging water bodies. There are so many areas, how the area system is all interlinked to one another.
Locals like Masalamani continue to count on the forest for their livelihood. But this time round, the forests too are counting on them.
Thanks for watching Eco India. If you like the story, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Scroll.in on YouTube.